Hello everybody and welcome to this final episode to this guide of Formula One. In this episode, I'll be touching on the logistics of the sport, and the logistics to F1 is a whole sport by itself. It's very complicated, so I won't be going into the details and specific timings of the logistics, but I want to give you a clear overview of how it works so that you understand how it's a sport by itself. If you haven't seen the previous episode about the strategy of F1, I encourage you to check that out. And let's get started with this episode. So in many other sports, when traveling around the world, you only have to carry the athlete. But in F1, the cars are part of the athletes. And in order to run the cars, you need a whole staff. You need tools, you need parts, and you need a lot of other equipment. So this complicates the whole logistic operation. In the case of F1, literally everything except the track has to go with the team. So the goal of this operation is to transport 10 teams across 5 different continents for 20 different races in a period of 9 months. So all teams are currently based in Europe. So this means that European races like the Austrian Grand Prix and the Belgian Grand Prix and Silverstone in the UK can also be transported by truck. This makes the whole logistic operation for European races a lot easier. The garages and pit boxes are built down immediately after the races, and during the races, the logistic team will be working on packing certain parts of the cars. For example, engines are not going to be replaced during the race, so this can be packed during or prior to the race. And then after the race, these teams will work very quickly to build down the rest of the motorhomes, the garages, and pack the non-critical items like tires, tools, and they'll strip down the car completely to its bare chassis. Each team has a logistic manager who plans this all out months in advance in cooperation with the partner for F1 DHL. The cars are taken apart and then put into a special box, which is then loaded into the truck, which protects the car on the journey. So for the flyway races, it's a much harder logistical operation. So think of Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, Singapore, Suzuka in Japan, and a lot more. But these are harder to do as you can't do them by truck. So the teams divide their equipment into critical and non-critical components. In the critical components are the technology equipment, the bodywork of the car, the engine, the wings, the car itself, the chassis, and this all has to be at these sites on time. So this is transported by plane to ensure that it is where it needs to be on time. But there's also non-critical components. These components include tires, tools, jacks, and these components are shipped in 5 sets. So at the start of the season, the teams each create 5 sets of these non-critical components, and these are loaded into 5 different containers. They're transported to the first 5 flyaway races. And once the flyaway race is done, that components package is shipped to the next flyaway race without a package. So from the 1st to 6th, from the 2nd to 7th, and so on. And at the end of the season, when there's no more flyaway races left, these containers are shipped back to the headquarters so that they can be reloaded with new components for the new season. Keep in mind, the teams carry a lot of equipment. They have to be able to rebuild their whole car from scratch. They carry over 40 sets of tires, 2,500 liters of fuel, more than 200 liters of motor oil. They have to supply 200 meals, and the staff isn't left behind either. So they're hauling over 50 tons of gear around the world in 9 months, year after year again. And to make it even more challenging, teams are not allowed to unpack their equipment before all the equipment for all teams has arrived. So that concludes this episode. Thank you very much for watching this series. I hope that you learned a lot about F1. I hope that you find it engaging and that you might be triggered to watch a race as well. I personally really enjoy to watch Formula One every weekend. I would encourage you to take a look at some of the races and the qualifying sessions as well, because they're very engaging, and I think that it's very fascinating to see how the engineering, the science, but also the feel of the drivers, the competitiveness, the logistics, and all these components, how they come together to create an engaging weekend. Thank you for watching.